Hello, I am Kenya Jenkins with the Division of Federal Support and Grantee Relations, and I want to welcome you to the 2021-2022 Super App eGMS Navigation Session. This session will provide participants with an overview of the Super App process from start to finish. It will provide school systems with information they can utilize in preparation for planning and budgeting allocations. This session will also provide participants with Super App timelines, updates, and an overall review of the application process in the electronic grants management system known as eGMS. This session will be facilitated by myself, Kenya Jenkins, as noted prior, and Randy Littleton, Chief of Staff with the Division of Federal Support and Grantee Relations. The first thing we have is our Super App timeline. On November 6th, the Super App and school system planning resources will be released. February 5th, 2021 will be our Super App submission date to LDOE. In March of 2021, LDOE will provide feedback to school systems on alignment to CIR and UIR academics approval and funding requirements, and school systems will also submit their revised Super App to LDOE as applicable. April 2021, the competitive funding allocations will be submitted to BSEE for approval. All 2021-2022 Super App and school system planning materials can be found in the Department School Improvement Library that is linked here for you. And you can also access the presentation recordings by clicking the image below. Next, we will have our objectives. School system planning teams will be able to have an understanding of the Super App rationale, be familiar with the structure and application components of Super App, be knowledgeable about the next steps after Super App submission, and be familiar with timelines associated with the Super App process. Now let's look at today's agenda. The first thing we're going to cover is an overview of the Super App rationale. The Super App, what does it do? It provides you with one application for all of your funding. School systems will submit a single application, a Super App, that will identify the strategies that school systems are adopting, align to the domains in the framework. It will identify the commitment that school systems are making with their state, local, and federal flow-through resources. And it will also identify the competitive funding that a school system is requesting of LDOE to support these strategies. An overview of Super App. So what does this application look like? The application has an administration section, and the administration section is inclusive of your ESSA transfers, Title I targeting pages, Title IV, IDEA, CEIS, MOE, and non-public allocations. The Super App also contains 4 domains: core academics, diverse needs, workforce talent, and LEA Systems. Here is a visual of the school system planning framework. As you will note, you have the domain identified, you have your focus area and indicators identified, and then you have the question, and you have guidance, response guidance, funding guidance, and then resources. This is a visual to show you what the planning framework looks like. And you can utilize and see this in the school system planning guide. Your Super App budget pages. The budgets will exist in the following application sections. In the administration section, your non-public budget detail will be housed here. This is not due in your February submission. It is not due until your April submission. Again, your non-public budget detail that is housed in the administration section is not due until the April submission. Then you have your 4 domains. Your core academics has a budget detail. Diverse needs has 2 budget details, an English language behavior budget detail, and a students with disabilities budget detail. Then you have your workforce talent budget detail and corresponding to as well the LEA Systems budget detail. The next section in our agenda, we'll talk about our application structure and the administration section in particular. When you are navigating in eGMS, there is a drop-down menu to the right of the eGMS Access Select page where you can access your application sections. As you'll note, there is a drop-down selection for you, and when you are entering the administration section, you will select that in your drop-down feature. All right, we have also provided site maps for you to give you a visual of where things are located in each section of the super app. So as you will note here for the administration section, you will see that it is the consolidated administration section, and you have your overview, ESSA transfers, Title I, Title IV, IDEA, non-public, and your allocations. You will see some varying color on the site map as well. Those tabs noted that are blue and gold are tabs that have had minor changes, usually text changes in them. If you see a tab such as that private school determination tab, that is a new tab to the site map for this year. And so we wanted to make sure that you know the distinction between the two. Again, those that are blue and gold are typically those that just have text changes and question changes. And those that are in red are those that are actually new to the actual page this year. So here we just want to remind you of a couple of things. Your ESSA transfers will take place here. So your migrant transfer capability is here as well. Also, you have that new page that we mentioned, the private school determination page. You want to make sure that you are moving forward through this process when you get to the non-public tab and making sure that you complete your private school determination page with a yes or no, and then move to your non-public consultation, your ESSA equitable share, your Title III, IDEA proportionate share, and then your non-public budget detail. But again, remember that non-public budget detail is due on the April submission. All right, this is another visual of the administration section, giving you a snapshot of the things that are the same from last year, which is the majority of the section, and then showing you what is new this year. And again, here, it's your private school determination. All right, your Title I targeting step 1 page. Here, we just wanted to make sure and note that you are using your October 2020 data for your rank and serve, your non-public low income, and your homeless enrollment count. October 2020 data is going to be utilized here. On your targeting step 4 page, this question was added in last year's super app and remains. And so if you select yes to the question here, a text box will appear for the school system to provide the methodology the district uses to ensure that the state and the local funds are distributed to its Title I schools in a neutral manner. Again, this was a question that was added last year. So it is not completely new, but we just wanted to remind you that when selecting yes, a text box will appear and you will have to provide that narrative for the department. This page is also for your targeting step 4 page. And what this identifies for you is your CIR, or your comprehensive intervention required, and your UIR, urgent intervention required, set-asides that are located on your targeting step 4 page. We want to make sure that you note that these set-asides are here and their purpose. Next, you have your allocations page in the administration section. And this allocation page provides you with a column of all of the federal funds. And for your February submission, you're going to see allocations for ESSA, IDEA, and Perkins only. So again, this chart represents your funding sources, the allocations of those funding sources, and any adjustments or reallocations or supplements to funding would be here on this allocations page as well. As you will note, you will have to invest across your domains. Again, that's your core academics, diverse needs, workforce talent, and LEA systems. You will invest across those domains from the different funding sources that you have provided. Next on our agenda is our core academics domain. As you will see here, you can select core academics from the applications section so that it will navigate you through the system. And you have your Super App sitemap here for the core academics as well. So something you should notice about the sitemaps is it has a particular structure for the domains. Each domain will have priorities that you will address based upon the school systems planning team and the budget detail. And then you also have, for the core academics domain, an additional section for program specific questions where you will address and create narratives for Carl Perkins and direct student services. And then again, you have your budget detail. So you have priorities that you will address, you have program specific questions for Carl Perkins and DSS that you will address, and you have your budget detail. You will note that there are several text and question changes because of the blue and gold coloring on the tabs. And you see that there is one new tab or priority here listed, and that is early literacy support. This is a snapshot of the priorities section for core academics. This slide captures the structure of the domains, and under each, again, you see the priorities. So here you have high quality curricula, high quality professional development, and so on. You'll note that we've given you an example, and all responses should align with the school system's plan, and results will be captured in your Super App workbook that you will have access to. For example, here, the school system would identify the curriculum across the grade spans. And then for each grade span, the school system should include any state or local funding utilized to finance the curricula that is being listed. Next, the school system should include any federal funding utilized to finance that particular curriculum. And lastly, the school system should include any additional funding needed to support the implementation of the chosen curriculum for each grade span. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Randy Littleton, and he will speak to you about the budget detail pages.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Here we have a screenshot of the budget detail page. As you can see from working in the 2021 application, there have been no major edits made to the budget detail. We will use this next couple of slides to focus on a couple areas of the budget detail. The first area is the domain allocation table. This table will track the funding that has been invested on the allocations tab that Ms. Jenkins referenced earlier, as well as the unbudgeted amounts for each fund source. As you can see in this example, for Title II, $18,821 has been invested on the Allocations tab. In the budget detail, expenditures for the full amount have been entered and saved, leaving an unbudgeted amount of $0. For Title V, however, $5,000 has been allocated, but only $4,800 has been completed in the budget detail at this point. There is still $200 remaining to be budgeted. The first column in this section of the budget detail is the fund source dropdown. The fund source dropdown will be populated with all funding that has been invested in the core academics domain. Here, you would select the fund source for the expenditure item that you're about to enter. For example, if you are working in Title I funding, you would select Title I in the Fund dropdown. The object code dropdown will display the standard set of 1 to 800 object codes. If you need additional information for each object code, there is a link on this page that provides a description of object codes and EIC codes. You may use this link for additional information. Exclude from MTDC. This column is used for expenditures that should not be linked to indirect costs. There are some expenditures, such as participant support costs for non-employees, that should not be linked with indirect costs. If you need additional information on the exclusion from MTDC, please consult with your business manager. The EIC dropdown will include a list of EIC codes that align with the fund source that has been selected. Again, you may obtain additional information on each EIC code in the link provided on this page. For expenditure description and itemization, you will enter detailed information about the expenditure for which you are budgeting. Keep in mind, you should include enough detail so that a reviewer can determine if the expenditure is allowable and or reasonable and coded properly. In the amount column, you would simply enter the amount for this expenditure. The delete row column allows you to go back and delete any line in the budget detail by simply placing a check mark in the delete row column, saving the page, and the expenditure line will be removed from the budget. We have highlighted at the top of the screenshot the sort function. We have embedded a function for object code and fund source sorting. Remember, sort should be used after the completion of your budget detail. You should not enter new data while in the sort mode, as this could lead to a loss of data. The sort function allows you to sort the budget and see only portions of the budget that need to be viewed at that time. The next area is the diverse needs domain. Here is the application section dropdown. Again, keep in mind you will use the application sections located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to navigate through the application. The site map for diverse needs indicates that there are priorities, English language behavior budget detail, and students with disabilities budget detail. Keep in mind, this is the only domain in which you will have two distinct budget details. Under priorities, note that specialized supports and related services for students with disabilities has had some text changes, and the Student Engagement and Success tab has been added for this application. The English language behavior budget detail is very similar to the budget detail that we looked at in core academics. We are noting here that the focus area column has been added to the budget detail. This is a required item for each expenditure. Listed for English language behavior budget detail focus areas is English language learners, behavior, and migrant. You would select the appropriate focus area for each expenditure that you will list in your budget detail. We have also added focus areas to the sort function on this budget detail. This will allow you to not only sort by fund source and/or object code, but you may also include the focus area. Students with disabilities budget detail. Again, focus area is a required component of this budget detail. Here you will see ID disabilities early, high quality instruction, specialized supports and services, effective transition P&I, CEIS, and administration listed as your focus areas. It has also been added in the sort functionality for the Students with Disabilities budget detail. At this time, I will hand the presentation back over to Ms. Jenkins.
All right, thank you, Mr. Littleton. We will now talk about our workforce talent domain. And as you will note, you will access it the same way through the drop-down menu and select Workforce Talent. Here is our sitemap for Workforce Talent. As you will notice, there are 5 priorities that are listed: teacher pipeline, educate leadership and support, high quality school leader support, school improvement best practices, and literacy coaching and interventions. As you will note, the last 2 tabs are completely new to this section: school improvement best practices and literacy coaching and interventions. You will note that they are highlighted in red. And then additionally, you have a budget detail that goes along with your workforce talent section. The next domain is your LEA Systems domain. You will access it through the drop-down menu, noting LEA Systems. And your sitemap, you have 3 priorities with LEA Systems: long-term early childhood vision, expanding early childhood access, and improving early childhood quality. And as all of the other domains, you have a budget detail associated with this as well. Here is a screenshot from the LEA Systems page where you note the 3 priorities listed that I just mentioned, and then you have your priority questions that you will answer associated with this particular priority: long-term early childhood vision. All right, at this time, I will turn the presentation back over to Mr. Randall Littleton, and he will discuss with you after Super App submission.
So what happens after the submission of your Super App application? There are 2 approvals that the Super App application will go through. The first approval is the approval of Super App. Here, the department will review school system budgets for formula funds to ensure that each expenditure is allowable under the specific grant. The second approval is the approval of the school improvement strategy as required by ESSA. The department will review answers to designated questions within the Super App to approve a school systems improvement strategy for CIR and UIR schools. The department also grants competitive funds designated by ESSA for school improvement to support these strategies. Here's a screenshot of the review summary checklist. This review summary can be used to track your application as it moves through the review process. More importantly, the review summary should be used to review comments provided by the reviewers. In this example, you can see that Ms. Martha Moore has accepted Carl Perkins with comments. You can select the radio button next to Carl Perkins, use the review checklist button at the bottom of the page, and this will open the review checklist to allow you to see the comments provided by Ms. Moore. This is a screenshot of the actual review checklist. We have provided a couple examples of information you may see on a review. In the first row, you will note that yes has been selected in the first column. The fund source is Title I, the object code 500, EIC 11. By selecting yes in the first column, the reviewer is indicating here that the expenditure in object code 500, EIC 11, is allowable and or reasonable and is coded properly. However, some additional information is needed in the expenditure description. In the second row, no is selected. For Title I, object code 200, EIC 14. Here, the reviewer is indicating that the expenditure is either not allowable or it's coded improperly. This type of comment will indicate that action on your part is needed for the complete approval of your application. At the very bottom of the page, no is selected for all items in administration are coded appropriately. This is the administrative review checklist of grants management. The no here would indicate that the application is being returned for change for this section of the review. If yes were selected, it would mean the reviewer is either accepting or accepting with comments this portion of the review. The reimbursement process. Once your application is approved, you will note on the eGMS Access Select page that the payments functionality has been turned on. In this shot, you will see that Carl Perkins IDA, and ESSA consolidated payment buttons have been activated. In order to start the review process, you would simply click the payment button for the fund source desired. By selecting the payments button, this screen will be visible. You will note across the top of the page all fund sources for this funding will be listed, and you will also note highlighted for you in red the total funds available and the approved budget original application totals. These two totals should match. If there is a difference between the two totals, that indicates an amendment is needed. To move forward in the review, reimbursement process, and expenditure report process, simply use the link at the top of the page, View Reimbursement Request and Expenditure Reports. The Reimbursement Request and Expenditure Reports menu is shown below. The first area, the program drop-down selection, allows you to select the funding for which you would like to create a reimbursement request or a periodic expenditure report. You can see here that reimbursement request number 1 and periodic expenditure report number 1 have been created for Title I. You can use the Create New Request to add additional reimbursement requests or periodic expenditure reports. For the reimbursement request, you will need the object code, the expenditure description, and the amount for which you are asking for reimbursement. You would simply select the object code, provide the expenditure description for that expenditure, and indicate the amount of reimbursement. Note, you will also need to include the end period expense date and place a check mark certifying that the information that has been provided is accurate. Once that is done, you would save the page and submit the reimbursement request. This moves the request into an approval process. Once approved, payment will be made. The periodic expenditure report. You will note that there are 5 tabs included on the periodic expenditure report. The first tab, Expenditure Obligation Summary, shows a summary of all activity for the periodic expenditure reports at this time. All of these columns will be populated as you move through the completion of the periodic expenditure report. Note that an expenditure period end date must be included, and there is also a selection for final expenditure. This box is used only when you are closing out a grant, and all reimbursement requests have been submitted for this fund source. The second tab, the Expenditure Obligation by EIC page, will display information by EIC codes for the approved budget. It will also show the object codes in which the funding has been budgeted. In this example, EIC 11HC, you will note that the final approved budget amounts are listed by object codes. The previously reported, expended, and obligated are also listed by object codes. The third row, Accumulated Obligations, Expenditures to Date, is the line in which you will enter any amount for this current expenditure report that you are completing. Once that is done, you will save the page and move on to the Certification tab, which will allow you to certify the information included in this periodic expenditure report. And finally, the Submit tab. This will move your periodic expenditure report into the review process for approval. At this point, I will hand the presentation back over to Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Littleton. We will now lastly talk about the timelines associated with the Super App. As you will see here, the timelines are listed for the entire Super App process. We began, of course, with the November 6th School System Planning Guide and Super App release. And it actually moves forward and gives you the important dates and deadlines and timelines that are associated with your submission and your approval. So we know that everything will launch on November 6th. We know that the Super App will be due on February 5th. We know that Bessie will approve the competitive allocations for CIR and UIR academic strategies on April 20th. We know the competitive funds will be uploaded into Super App on May 1. And School systems at that time will have time to amend their super app and account for all of their formula and competitive allocations between May and June. And this super app grant period will begin for 2021-2022, July 1. If there are any adjustments that are necessary to the estimated formula allocations that were made, those will be done in August. Any prior year funds that will roll over into super app, which are subject to the school system's timely submission of their 630 per, will be in August as well. And then school systems will receive their final allocations for ESSA, IDEA, and Perkins in December. You will also see a tool in Appendix E that is called the Super App Submission Checklist. The Super App Submission Checklist can be used by the planning team members that are submitting the application to ensure that they are completing all of the necessary tabs and budgets for each of their sections. And we just put a snippet of that document here, but of course it will be located in the school system planning guide for your reference. Lastly, our super app support. Support for completing the super app will be provided through your school improvement library, where all of your documents will be housed, the LDOE weekly newsletters, the system leader monthly calls, and the super app planning support calls. The school systems relation team and office hours that are going to be scheduled on Fridays at 10 a.m. Those details for those office hours will be coming soon in the LDOE weekly newsletter. If you have questions about the super app, you can send all of those questions related to school system planning and super app to the ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov. Make sure you include super app in the subject line. At this time, we want to thank you for all viewing this session today. We hope that we have provided you with information that you can utilize and that will assist your teams in your planning for super app this year. And we want to thank Mr. Randy Littleton for facilitating this webinar with me today. My name is Kenya Jenkins, and we thank you all for viewing and have a great day.